it pointing at my house, but I've got Mount Rainier off that way, and I've got Lake Washington and the Cascades that way.
I am jealous. I think you made a very smart moving decision. I love the Bay Area. Don't get me wrong. So many trails here, but like the number of runs I'm seeing from you where it's like epic mountain views, epic mountain lakes. Like, oh yeah, this is a couple hours from my house every single weekend, different place. I'm just going, what did I do with my life?
Yeah. I mean, it's still probably like any trails that take me more than 30 minutes drive are still largely getting up into the snow. So, yeah.
Easy, man.
What are you drinking?
Currently, this is cherry pomegranate and cranberry juice.
Okay. Well, I just got this Iron Horse Brewery Hefeweizen with ginger and honey, which I'm very happy with. So.
Nice. I will be, cheers. I'll be shifting to a beer after this. But yeah, no, I'm just sitting here filling out my Western States 100 prediction contest. And I have both columns filled in now, and I'm kind of like going back and forth on the level to which I respect Nicole Bitter. I think if this were a top 10 if this were a top 10 list versus a top 8 in the Masters, she's in it. I just have a dark horse that I want to stick into my top 8, and it keeps bumping her off. And I'm like, do I do it or do I not? Because she's probably gonna be in that top 8.
Yeah. So who is your dark horse?
Erin Clark. She was second at Bandera this year.
Okay.
And her boyfriend is Adam Peterman, who is just an absolute beast of a mountain runner. They train together. She's definitely put in a lot of really good training, and she's fast, like really fast. And so a fast course is really gonna play to her. It's also her first 100-miler. Bandera was her first ultra ever. But she's got a good crew. She's got a good team. So it's kind of if stuff's clicking, if she has the right advice, if she plays it smart, I see her being in that 8th spot at least, if not more. I think I gotta respect Nicole.
Yeah,
I gotta respect Nicole.
Yeah, she's definitely good for a top 10, I would guess. I had her at number 7. I'm looking at my predictions that I had posted.
Yeah.
The question mark for me was Ruth Croft on the women's side, because she's really good at the shorter distances. But I think this is the first time over 100K even. So.
I mostly have not respected runners who don't have the 100-miler experience. I definitely in this list have overcorrected it overall for people who have had the 100-mile experience, because we're expecting a really hot year.
Yeah.
100-mile. If it's your first 100-miler and you're coming into the canyon and it's 100+ degrees.
Yeah.
It's different. It's gonna be different.
Yeah.
Like, so I definitely am like, this list is built more towards experience than speed overall.
Yeah. I mean, we can take, Matt Daniels last year being his first 100-miler, but that was like the ideal weather for it, being the coolest year.
Yeah, I really don't think 2019 is a great predictor.
No.
Of a lot, because for a couple of reasons. One is just such a good weather year, just an amazing weather year, which is why, so many fast times. But additionally, just the level of, I don't know what it is about 2019, but it felt like everything clicked at the right time for a large number of people in a way it doesn't normally. I think that was one of the deeper fields that we've seen. And it was one of the deeper fields that got to the starting line primed and healthy. So I'm looking through this list right now, like for both the men's and the women's side, and it's like littered with names that I'm like, okay, you've been injured, you've been injured, you've been injured, you've been injured, you've been injured.
Totally. Yeah.
Like how is this going to play out? And some people feel this is a really deep year, and I think on the surface it seems like a deep year for both the men and the women, but under the surface I kind of feel like everybody's almost limped into this thing. So
yeah, because like Tig is kind of limped into this. Maybe she's back. Same story with Jim. Although did you happen to see the Jim and Claire interview with Ginger Runner Live? That was
I didn't.
So I was listening to that while I was working earlier, and Jim seemed really confident, actually. So maybe your predictions are right there. But his read on the speed was that actually it might be just as fast as other years, especially the splits in the early years, just because there's going to be no snow. So the high country will just be really fast through Robinson Flat.
Yeah. No, I could agree that those early miles probably will run fast. When I went up Whitney a month ago, it was already basically no snow anywhere. Like there were a couple of switchbacks where it was like 10 or 15 feet where you didn't need traction or anything. You just kind of like walked to the side of it. It's a little bit narrower, or you scrambled around it a little bit, but there pretty much wasn't any snow left. Now it's on fire. There.
Right.
Oh well.
Wait, Mount Whitney's on fire now?
Yeah. So Whitney Portal, there's a fire in the drainage that leads up to it, and I think it burned up to Portal last night. I'm pretty sure they put defenses in place around like the store and whatnot, but it's been closed for about 4 or 5 days now. Wow. So I got that run out of the way in a really good time.
Yeah. I mean,
before injury, like my preferred start date was now, like literally now. I can get that start date. Plus with the injury, I'm very happy that my start date got pushed, but it would have been an interesting setback.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, just the wildfire damage. I mean, that's just the beginning of it this year. But like Mountain Lakes is going to be impacted by that this fall. It's going to be rerouted because the whole southern end of the course was burned out in last year's fires. Let's hope the fires aren't as bad this year overall. And it's crazy how different like California drought is, how hot it is. Wildfires are starting up there and in Arizona, whereas it's still been fair. I mean, we're getting hot up here. But it's still, we still gotten a decent amount of precipitation up here in the Northwest. And then like on the other side of the Continental Divide in Colorado, they say it's really, really wet, but then it's, on the west side, I guess it's been dry. So
I forget what day it was that they said this year was our first red flag day. But it was the earliest day that we'd ever had for the Bay Area for red flag conditions in the East Bay Hills here. And I want to say it was close to the beginning of March.
Dang.
It was ridiculous how early it came. And I kept feeling like the rainy season was maybe still going to happen, but we got drizzles maybe 2 or 3 times, and that was it this year. It just didn't rain. Normally you get that big like green up, and then it kind of slowly fades back to brown. Right. It drizzled enough that was like you could tell there was a green layer under the brown layer that just never even got matted down because it just didn't go away because it just wasn't enough moisture. And then the moment it got hot, it was gone.
Because I remember being a good wildflower season, everybody posting the lupines and headlands and up, by Folsom Lake and everything.
So I'm gonna submit some choices here. I guess I should screenshot this first.
Yeah, who are your choices here for top 8 and Masters winners?
So my choice for on both sides, my choice for Masters winner is not in my top 8. I think on the men's side, I think my Masters winner will probably still be in the top 10. I've chosen Max King.
Yeah.
On the women's side, I have Magda.
Yep. We have the same Masters winners. Yep.
Yeah. I have a hard time seeing her in the top 10 this year. But I also really haven't seen, she doesn't share her training publicly, and I really haven't seen race results from her for a while. So it's really hard to gauge the preference for not having her in the top 10 is honestly just literally that like at her age versus the sheer number of great women that are now competing who have run incredible times. I just feel like the field is so dense, but maybe her experience will win out. Like if it's a hot year, there's always those questions. So it could be.
Yeah. I mean, she did do. I mean, you could point to her experience at Marathon des Sables as, really good performance in the heat. So
I mean, I think her racing history has always been one of very intelligent racing. So it's definitely the kind of year that will play to her advantages.
Yeah.
Men's side, I did pick Jim as my overall win. He did come out finally this week and go like, oh yeah, I was fighting a bit of IT band issues, and so I just hopped on the bike for most of this, and then transitioned into like 30 miles a week of running. Honestly, based on how he structured that running, he's probably more than fit enough. Like you look at some of the really good 50K and 100K performances in the last few years for ticket races or for high profile, very competitive 50Ks. And you've got athletes who are just like, oh yeah, I just cross country skied or biked. And then I did 10 miles a week for a couple of weeks and tossed myself into this and did just fine. I used to run a little bit with Chris Danucci, and he did a lot of that. He'd like row and bike, do all this other stuff. And then he'd do barely any running. And you'd think, oh, he's not running fit. And the guy just dropped me on the American River like no other.
Yeah.
So
I remember.
Yeah. I think I believe Jim that he's ready. I think I believe him. He knows what this race takes, and he knows what it takes even when it's hot. It's amazing that he ran the course record time that he did in 2019, but for it to only be that much, just barely faster than his old record, which was running the high heat, he knows what this takes. For second, I've got Tim.
Me too. Yep.
I think Tim will be nipping at Jim's heels for a lot of the day. But I also think that might be what gets Tim. I think what I respect there most is his UTMB experience. And his UTMB experience, he really has never shown himself a speedster there. He's shown himself to outlast the competition, which is one reason why I think that if he sticks with Jim, he falls back, and kind of see where that goes.
If Jim makes a move, Tim isn't going to chase him unless it's like the last 20 miles or something.
Yeah. I mean, if Tim chases early, I think he might be in trouble.
Yeah.
Third, I have bumped Kirsch all the way up into third.
Okay. I had him at 7.
He's been really, really interesting in his progression of getting better. Like every single race, it feels like he's getting better. And that even when he's bumping up distances, and he did well enough at his first states that I'm sitting here going, I'm willing to accept that he improves on that.
Yeah.
Behind him, I've got Alex Nichols, and then Mark Hammond. And then this is just my bleeding heart here. I'm hoping for the best, but I put Eric Sensman in 6th.
All right, good luck.
I know. But I'm hoping it's his year. I really hope
What does
it's
that
his
make?
year.
Like fourth time the charm, fifth time the charm, or something?
Something like that. Something like that. But I'm hoping it's his year. Put him in there. Let's go there.
Yeah.
You can get this. Of course, that the person that bumped out of my list that we won't have in here is Patrick Regan. So I took a speedster out in favor of Eric, but I will probably regret that. He needs to come through for me. Then I've got Kyle Pietari. And behind Kyle, I've got Tyler Green.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was thinking of putting him in there too. Yeah, I heard a good buzz about Tyler just when I was running the Y East Wonder a couple weekends ago. I was running for first section with some of the folks that I guess are in kind of his coaching, group that have the same coach and everything. And it sounds like he's pretty sharp. So.
And he's got a lot of experience with long, hard efforts. He's traditionally done more FKT stuff when it gets into the long stuff, but he does have that experience. It's not like some of these other folks who are like, oh, okay, I've run fast 100Ks and now I'm jumping up. Or I've run some okay 100 milers and put some fast 100Ks and now I'm trying to go the next step. He's run fast at distances around 100 miles. It's just FKT style efforts. And I think I respect that a lot. So it's in there.
Mm-hmm. The limiting factor, I would say, for him is being Portland based. He's not going to have the same heat training as like the Arizona guys and the Colorado folks. So that'll be a disadvantage.
Yeah, that could be.
This year.
Yeah, that runs out my top 8. I think the most notable person I don't have in there is going to be Hazen. Although I think you've also got Matt Daniels in yours.
Yeah, I did put Matt as my 8th pick, but I think if I revised this today, I would put Tyler Green there in the 8th spot. So I had Jim and Tim, and then I actually put Hayden in 3rd. Just reading a lot about what it seems like he's taking the 100-mile distance more seriously. So I'll see with that, but it does seem like he's been switching up his training to really put the
I have no doubt he's taking it seriously, and he's obviously brought incredible speed and performances to a lot of different distances. But like I was saying earlier, I had a preference for people who have the experience here, given it's likely to be a very hot year.
Totally. Yeah. Well, he's coming from St. George. It's not a cool place. So.
Yeah. No, this is true. This is true. I mean, I think Hazen could surprise me. Hayden could surprise me. Daniels could surprise me. I think there are definitely a lot of names that I haven't added into here that are worthy of recognition. Kind of weighed things. This is where I've ended up. You got Hazen in 4th?
Yeah, I still have Hazen in 4th. I mean, seems like you're down on him, but I mean, he's still been putting up some good training. I mean, he's not been Strava dark like like his old roommate has been, but it seems like pretty decent. And he's got the pedigree to think he can turn it on. So, but yeah, I think he won't be pushing Jim in the same way. And then I actually had Max King in 5th. So that's kind of my dark horse, like. Kind of on a lark, I mean,
does he still have it in him?
Yeah. Does he still have it in him? Right. And he closed, damn hard at Canyons. So that was impressive. So he's still got something. But 100 miles is, far different from 100K, of course. So we'll see. I had Hammond at 6 because, he's just old reliable. He's going to be in there somewhere, and Kirsch at 7 and Daniels at 8.
Anyone's guess. I mean, I was thinking back to 2019 and how, and going into that, I just didn't think anybody was going to beat Courtney.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sad she's not running this year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, nobody did beat her. She beat herself, basically.
This is true. She did beat herself.
Yeah.
And it is,
Yeah.
it is.
But I mean, the thing that then after her drop, it became, one of the most epic races to the finish of all time was remarkable. So.
Yeah. But then Claire went on to have the UTMB success. And I just really want to see Claire and Courtney battle again. Like, I think there's a good battle there to be had still. Waiting for our opportunity. I'll be really excited for it when it happens. But that said,
yeah,
if we go to our women's picks, I didn't pick Claire to win.
Neither did I.
So I do think she's the person to beat. She, I think in my mind, the only person really at her level right now on the women's side consistently, if we lining everybody up in a race and they're all in great condition to start line, is Courtney. But because of that battle with Brittany, I'm picking Brittany this time. I want to see a battle again.
That's my pick as well.
Picking Brittany.
Yep. Yeah, I think it'll be just a repeat of the duel, and I think Brittany will be hungrier, and she'll get it done.
I mean, I think Brittany has shown she has a lot still out there to go prove and show and can do. So this could be a chance. So I've slid her above, and that puts Claire at 2.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have Casey here at 3rd.
Wow.
Even with her setbacks, I think the level of reliability and consistency that she's had in her finishes for the year that it's going to be, probably going to be enough to get her close. I definitely don't see her getting higher than 3rd and without some drama up front. But I definitely don't see her falling outside of the top 8 unless she just something goes really, really wrong, which soul trying, everything can go wrong. But
and you got to think if it's a tough weather year, she's got the heat training from Omaha. There's no lack of heat out there, and she's just the veteran in the group at this point, so she's going to be able to navigate that as good as anyone.
Yeah. For 4th, I've got Beth. I think there's a little bit of a question mark there. Clearly has shown that she can do it. For 5th, I've got Katie. Katie Asmuth.
Okay.
I think that's my
top 8.
I think that's like maybe one of my more I don't want to say controversial picks, but it's definitely I believe in her ability to get close to that podium, if not on it, more than I suspect some others do right now. I would not be surprised to see her in the running at all. In 6th, I've got Ragna Debats from Spain. I probably am not pronouncing her name right. Probably am not pronouncing her name right. But I didn't know a lot about her, but like reading through her race results and some of her background, plus just the history of Spanish ultra runners in general, like they just tend to be very resilient and strong, even in inclement weather.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Even with a debut, I think that it's that her name could be in that mix, so I was willing to kind of slide her in. Put Nicole Bitter here in 7th, and then for 8th, I've got Emily Hawgood.
That's
Emily.
We have the same 7 and 8. Mm-hmm.
Now Emily is interesting because she and Katie keep switching in results. she and Katie have battled it out with each other like 3 or 4 times now in 100-mile plus mountain, 100-mile plus distances. So kind of interesting to me, because I think I'm giving like Katie the better chance just on pure grit right now.
Mm-hmm.
But she definitely has that potential and ability.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in my mind, I think Katie can be on that podium. Is in striking distance of that podium. So that to me indicates that there's also this chance that Emily is in striking distance of that podium, which basically means I think that the whole top 8 that I've picked here could end up on the podium, which it's deep. Like I actually think the women's field this year, which this has kind of been true for a couple of years here, but I think the women's field this year is deeper in a lot of ways than the men's field is, mostly because I think the men's field has come to this more hobbled. Yeah, no. So those are my picks.
So
we'll see.
Okay, well, so I'm a lot higher on Beth Pascal than you are. I've got her in 3rd, and I would say if anyone besides Brittany and Claire has a shot at winning, I would give it to her. So, barring injury or something, people just really bonking and in the heat and everything, I would be surprised if the podium has anybody outside Brittany, Claire, and Beth in some order. Because Beth has just been crushing it at some of these golden ticket races. Seems like she's really on fire and has been training, here in the US. So that's kind of I'm pretty strong on those top 3, Brittany, Claire, Beth in that order right now. And then I've got Ruth Croft in 4th. Big question mark. That's kind of my dark horse lark, sneaking into the top 5. But
I mean, there's so many names this year that, like even in the preview, the I Run Far preview, there's so many names that are like just barely even mentioned. Like they're all in the still more fast women to watch category for the most part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but it's definitely a deep year.
Totally.
I mean, Keely Henninger has done
she could be
so awesome at so many things, but it's her first 100-miler. So that's why I think if it wasn't a hot year, if it was predicted to be a cool year, she might have bumped her.
I think the Northwesterners will be at a disadvantage this year for sure. Yeah. Although I have Camelia Mayfield in 5. Her race, down the track to get 5th or was it 6th last time, that was impressive, even, just as much as Claire and Brittany battling it out. So I have her there in 5, and I could see her moving up. And then I've got Casey in 6, which is also kind of a, I guess, I'm rooting for her. I'm a fan of Casey. I actually also wouldn't be surprised if she's, ends up in 25th or 30th place, right? And just has a tough day because, she is coming off of, some pretty tough, injuries and stuff. And then I've got Nicole Bitter and Emily Hoggood in 7-8. So.
I mean, 2 names we haven't even talked about. I think Camille Herron has another entry, doesn't she?
She does. I have not seen her put it together on the trails at this distance. So I would be surprised if she makes the top 10. I would be surprised
too, mostly because it's a hot year. I mean, I think her style is going to take a cold year.
Totally. Yeah. So, I would not be surprised to see her, in the top 10, through Robinson Flat or something of that nature, in the top 5, but wouldn't also be surprised if she drops at Forest Hill. Right.
And then Audrey Tangui, probably another name I'm not saying.
I think she's the defending UTMB champion, I believe, or not Courtney,
not UTMB. I think she won Lavaredo. But she also was the speedster at Project Carbon X. So
Yep.
I think I was really tempted to put her on the list, and it was like, it was her or Emily for me in that 8th spot, and I decided to go with Emily. But
yeah,
she, like, I didn't even put her in my top 8, and I would still not be surprised to see her competing up at the front all day. I just can't say this about the guys' side. I think the women's race is going to be a lot more interesting race. I think the guys' side is going to roughly go. Jim goes out at the pace that he knows he needs to go out at. Hazen, Hawks, probably Kirsch, but maybe not Kirsch, and Daniels are going to be stuck right behind him. And whatever other fools are there. By 35, there's going to have dropped 2 or 3, who either will be fading or all the way out from the heat. Probably by about 55, you're down to it converting into the Jim switches on okay, it's go time switch that he likes to do for the back half, and it's everyone who was cooking to keep up to him at that point is now screwed because they're just going to be overheated. So
Jim will know how to turn the screws and keep within himself more than the others will.
And he does that to people. It's almost a racing tactic. Like, he runs within himself for the first half just enough that everybody keeping close to him is working too hard, and then he dials it up to that extra gear and just lays them out, because basically what happens is all those people ended up having worked too hard to that point. So they're no longer battling for second. They start falling back, and it's like that chase pack becomes who's battling for second.
Except in 2019 when it was cool and everyone just kept
and
cruising.
Everyone just kept going fast, which was fun to watch. That was fun to watch. You like put some air conditioning bubbles over the course. And
Totally. So in terms of like his only running 30 miles a week and doing a lot of bike, I mean, it gives me some skepticism, but then it also makes me think of the guy that I paced in 2019, the French guy, Tanguy. That was kind of his training regimen as well. I mean, in the 6 months leading up to the race, I don't think he ran a run longer than like 12 miles. But he was doing a lot of biking, and he ended up, for a middle of the pack guy, doing quite great, finishing under 24 hours. And I was shocked. So yeah, I mean, for Jim, who's training pretty hard up through April, right? Until he kind of was succumbed to some of his IT band issues and stuff, and had that Carbon X background. I mean, it'll probably kick in for him pretty well, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the cycling, it gets you that cardio, and it also gets you a lot of similar leg strength. Like, I consistently see the folks who are the best cyclists turn into the best hill runners. Like, the muscle crossover seems to be really related. So I don't think that he's really like atrophying anything that he needs being on the bike. And if that 30 miles is structured where it's kind of coming in a 2-day period where, however he does it, 10 and 20, 15, 15, 28 and 2, however he's doing that, if it's in that 2-day period, or even just like a condensed period where it's like across 2 days, but within a shorter time period, that would be more than enough stress, I would think, to go handle a race like this. Because you've gotten all of the other fitness training that you needed out for the first 5 days of the week on the bike without the extra stress on the IT, and then you get the skeletal stress in those 2 days. I don't know if that's how you structured it, but like if I were doing that, it's probably how I would structure it. That's cool. So I'm excited. I kind of want to go up and watch. I also kind of have to just like do stuff around the house. So
I'm kind of tempted to.
Afar.
Yeah, I'm kind of tempted to skip out of Seattle since it's going to be 103 degrees up here this weekend. So Oakland would be a nice chilly respite in comparison. Maybe go down to Auburn and head down to Oakland or something.
We were really hot yesterday. It was 70 degrees.
Yeah.
Sunday, I went for a run on Diablo. Not even Diablo, just kind of what is it, Shell Ridge. There where you can kind of go to the Castle Rock staging area and you can run stage road onto Diablo, or you can kind of loop back through the park. And I looked at the forecast and it said like 78 degrees for Walnut Creek. I'm like, no, that doesn't seem right for this time of year. It's got to be way hotter than that. I mean, you
Diablo, it's gonna be 20 degrees hotter. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you remember like you were sitting over here in Oakland. It'll be 60 degrees. You go through the tunnel to the other side of the hills. It's only like 2 miles as the crow flies, but you exit the tunnel and it's 90. Well, I go through the tunnel, exit it, and it's still 72 degrees. I'm like, it's a miracle this time of year, to be that cool over there. Driving along. I get, go past Lafayette, go past Orinda, still like saying like 75 on my thermostat. I'm like, wow, like I am so lucky. I hit where it has the like, and now entering Walnut Creek sign, instantaneous 95. I was like, oh no. Oh no, it's amazing though how this area is like that. You have all these nice cool areas and then you drive not even 20 minutes and it's a whole different temperature, whole different climate zone. But it was good to get out and run. I've been doing too much treadmill. It's nice to not be on the treadmill.
Yeah, you've been doing all those. What is that, like Pacific Island that you're virtually running on your treadmill?
So I'm running on Zwift, and so it's the Watopia world, and I think there is a real island, but I don't think it's actually called Watopia. Pretty sure that's just a made up name for Zwift.
Yeah, is this something out of like Mario and Wario or something?
Yeah, I have no idea what it's called in real life. But I don't know this for sure, but I think the reason that Zwift did this was basically it was their hack for allowing your activities to go into other platforms in a more shareable manner. Because by mapping it to a real world place, even though like none of these roads are there, none of these trails are there, like you're going underwater at times, you're going over water at times, you're going up mountains and volcanoes that don't necessarily exist at times. Even though the world is totally virtual, because the GPS coordinates are real, when you share it to something like Strava, you end up with a GPS track that you could actually go look at that's in the real world, which sometimes looks really funny because it's like, hey, this guy was running through the water.
Right.
But it does seem to make the platform a lot more shareable in that way. And it means that you can have like segments on Strava and whatnot for these virtual trails, which is kind of weird, but cool. It's a nice platform. But yeah, so I got the stress fracture in my hip and I just like needed something I could do that kept me fit-ish, but didn't put so much stress on the hip, and running uphill seems to be okay with that. And so 22% incline. It's as steep as my treadmill will go. Just stick it on that and then go run around virtually.
As you approach gearing up for doing the JMT FKT in October, then what would be kind of your plan of returning to, on the ground, real dirt and rocks, running and training, and how would you kind of transition from the treadmill to the dirt?
It's a lot of trial and error. I think when I first got injured, the timeline that I was given was, oh, this is like, you take 4 weeks off and then like 4 to 6 weeks off, and then you like slowly ramp back in. But what I found was like, honestly, there was still a lot of discomfort there. And now I'm 5 months out and there's still discomfort there. But talking with my PT, she's like, no, actually what I normally find with people is it's like more like 6 to 8 months until you're past that. And she thinks that I'm actually running a lot sooner than most of her clients end up being able to run. Which I find interesting because it's like the ortho doctor was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be over in no time at all. The PT is like, this takes time. I suspect the PT has better data and experience because she's seeing the clients repeatedly week over week versus the ortho sees you when you're injured and then maybe does a follow-up at some point, and that's kind of it. But my plan is literally just do a little bit more every week, try to take a lot of rest days. So right now my pattern is trying to be like stringing together some days of running so that I get that stress of accumulation. It's like it's the stress of running a little bit fatigued by doing more than 1 day in a row. But then I kind of back it off, and so it's like I'll do 2-3 days, take a day off, or take 2 days off, and then do 2 or 3 days and take a day or two off, and do 2 or 3 days, take a day or two off. It's very unstructured right now, but it's trending towards longer sessions, trending towards flatter sessions, and trending towards adding in days that are outdoors. And so right now I'm trying to do 1 day a week outdoors, and I think next week I'll probably try to do two days a week. So 2 days a week outdoors and 3 days a week outdoors. My hope right now is that pattern is only going to last another 5 or 6 weeks. And then I'm going to go into the crazy land, because if I actually want to be ready for JMT, that's when it is prep time. October 18th is my start date. That feels very far away right now in theory, but on paper you map it out and you're like, okay, I got like 16 weeks. Like most people when they're training for a marathon, which is a 10th the distance, are like, oh yeah, I need an 18-week plan. I have less time than that to get ready for 220 miles, starting from an injured state. So my build is very unconventional, I think, in some ways, but it'll be interesting. It's basically the next 6 weeks doing what I'm doing, adding a little bit, just making sure that I can do that, and getting to a point where 75 or 85 miles in a week feels okay. If I can get to that point where 75, 85 miles feels okay, even if it's really slow miles, then that next 4-week block, my goal is 210 miles a week. I'm going to try to do roughly a 50K a day. And then I'm going to handle that. How I handle that is going to be really dependent on how my hip is responding to that. So I'm going to be trying to minimize the training stress by keeping the intensity at really low levels. So no speed work, no interval work, nothing like that. No tempo work, nothing like that. It's literally just however I can get 30 miles in, go get 30 miles in. If I need to break it up into 5 runs, break it up into 5 runs. If I can do it in 2 runs, I do it in 2 runs. If I do one super long adventure run with a ton of hiking as part of it, that's what I do. But getting that 30 miles a day in, I think, is kind of key, because one, it's just putting the stress on. at a key time, because I get through that 4-week period, and then I'll have, I think 5 weeks of time until the attempt. And so you do 4 weeks of this high volume, really high volume, just kind of put the legs on, get the mountain legs ready. And then you got 5 weeks to kind of just recover, repair, fuel as much as you can. Like, it's not that I won't be doing any running, like I'll still be, running decent amount, but like it just becomes more about resting for the actual attempt and making sure I'm primed for the actual attempt. All of the real work will have happened in that 4-week period. That 4-week period is serving double duty, because I've never done something like that before. Like, I've never even done a week of that before, and I'm trying to do 4 weeks of that. But I want to do the Appalachian Trail next year. And my intent is to race Corey Woldering on that. So he's going to do it. I think currently he's thinking he's going to go north to south sometime early fall are the dates that he's looking at. And so I will start whatever day he's starting, I will start, but I will go south to north. And so we're racing each other, but from the opposite direction. So it's possible that we both get the FKT, but it's also possible that like only one of us gets an FKT, and like the other one like could run a faster time but not get it, because there's I think northbound right now is like 45 or 46 days, and southbound right now is like 42 days for the record. And so like what
did like Scott Jurek and Carl Meltzer and those guys do?
Opposite directions. I think Jurek has northbound and Meltzer has southbound. I could pull that up real quick though.
Okay. But they're not the current record holders, right? It's been
I think
since then.
Yeah, I think String Bean got the record, and then Saab took
Scott
it from
broke
him.
and several other.
No, I don't think Scott got it back from him, but I think Saab took it from String Bean. If I remember my history right, but we will pull it up. So yeah, so northbound. Northbound's the fastest right now. And so you got Jurek at 46 days, 8 hours in 2015, which was then beaten in 2017 by String Bean at 45 days, 12 hours, and String Beans was self-supported versus supported. And then you have Carl Saab in 2018, 41 days, almost 8 hours. The southbound record is Carl Meltzer. He's got 45 days, 22 hours, 2016. So it's I will be the one with the disadvantage. Not only do I have to run past
So
him,
you'll be targeting.
I have to be targeting 41 days flat, basically.
Oh, wait. So you're going north and he's going south, or?
Yeah,
I thought you said that.
That's the current plan. Is I would go north.
Going north. Oh, okay. So you'd be starting in Georgia, and he would be starting in Maine. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So potentially you guys could high five in the middle somewhere in West Virginia, or one of you might be taking a trail nap and you just pass by each other and not know it.
Hopefully we get to high five. That's the goal, is definitely to high five somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So this to go after that record, it's actually not as fast as the PCT record. I think the PCT record is like 60 something miles per day, whereas the AT record is like 50 something miles per day. But regardless,
well, no, I think, isn't it like 52? Because Timothy Olsen, I thought he was targeting 52 miles a day to set the record.
Let's see here. 2189 over basically 42 is 8 Appalachian Trail right now is 52. And I think the PCT is actually faster when I was looking at it. So 2592. Oh no, you're right. They're actually the current record is 49.5. Roughly 49.5 for PCT. I wonder what I was looking at. I was definitely looking at one of the longs lately and realized that it was in the 60s. It wasn't clearly not this one.
So in preparation for JMT, is the longest single run you've done 100K thus far? Or have you gone farther?
I've gone farther, but not in the context of a race. Or rather, let's rephrase this. I've gone farther twice. One was in the context of a race, but it was because I was lost. So it was 100K, but it turned into much more than 100K. And the other was the TAM to Diablo, or rather in our case, Diablo to TAM run that I did with Katie and Sam. I don't know how long that one was because my watch died a little bit before the end. I think my watch recorded that as like 68, and it died where the little bridge crossover.
You guys go a longer route than what?
Yeah. Well, we also
a longer route than
had
what
the
Victor and I did.
ascent. We had the 3.5 miles from the ascent, but we also had it a little bit longer from another. We had a little bit longer because of a small accidental detour.
Oh, because you guys are going westbound.
Yeah. We had a small accidental detour in Walnut Creek that added like 0.5 mile. And then we also just like made a couple of routing decisions to enjoy the run more than to optimize for distance. But the result of that was, it was like 68 miles for me to get to, you know, where the bridge is, where you make the decision if you're going up steep ravine versus dipsy. We were coming down steep ravine, and that's at that bridge is where my watch died. So from that bridge to the coast is what's missing for me.
That's probably like 2 miles.
Two something, I think. So it was probably a 70-mile day, maybe a little bit more. But that's in the misrouted 100K or the longest I've gone. I tried Mountain Lake's 100-miler as one of my very first ultras, but I bailed on that around halfway for various reasons. So a lot of 50 to 60-mile experience, but not
like. Are you going to do any like intentional overnight running and do like long stretches just in the dark to get used to that, or
I don't know that I will.
Deprivation, you know.
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good at like overnight stuff as it is, and I have had overnight running experience. So I'm not super worried from that perspective. I mean, I think that's always one of the biggest unknowns is it's late enough in the year, the days are shorter. It's going to be really cold at night, potentially some slight snow, trails I don't necessarily know that are already kind of hard to follow in some places. And I'm going to be up to 2 days worth of fatigue. So nighttime is definitely the risk, or a risk, big risk. But I don't think that it's necessarily the biggest risk that I'll face. And I think other things matter more, and spending more time on those other things is going to be better than like worrying about sleep deprivation training or anything like that. Like I've pulled so many all-nighters in my life. I'm not particularly worried about just the physical act of staying awake so much as time on feet, nutrition over that course of time, mountain experience, altitude experience, that kind of stuff. The idea behind the 30 miles a day to get ready is kind of twofold. It's one, I will spend over the course of that week roughly 60% of the time that I will spend running for the actual attempt, just in the course of running that. Even though like the total now the miles comes out similar because it's broken up and you end up running a little bit faster, probably. And I'm not at the high altitude for those necessarily. It'll be not quite the same amount of time on feet, but it just gets me a lot of time on feet and at least as many miles of time on feet as the actual attempt. And the other is just seeing how my body reacts to 30 miles a day. If I can't handle 30 miles a day for 4 weeks, there's no way I'm going to be able to handle 52 miles a day for 45 days. You know, it's kind of a wade in and test the waters for me for, can I do the Appalachian Trail next year? I mean, it won't be the definitive go, no go on that idea, but it will be a really big test for it.
Totally. Yeah. Well, do you want to switch gears and talk about kind of the state of our sport and media coverage of it and everything going into Western states after all the big, UTMB news and what the Cocodona coverage from Aravaipa was, and kind of what we're looking for states here.
Yeah, I'm happy to see iRun Far somewhat come back from the dead. It kind of felt during COVID times that they had maybe seen the end of their run. And I don't know if it's if that was part of their decision to sell or not, but they have picked up the coverage a little bit again, and that's been good to see, because they're very needed in the sport. There just feels like there really isn't enough media out there for the sport in general currently, and so any attempt at it feels good. UTMB news, I'm surprised there hasn't been more coverage of that. I'm surprised there hasn't been a lot more commentary done on that. That's probably, to me, the most gut-wrenching thing in the sport that's happened in a while, outside of the disaster in China. That was also kind of hard to think about, which also surprisingly has not received the coverage I would expect that to receive. And I think maybe that speaks a lot to the state of the media, as you were saying. With UTMB, the reason that was a gut punch for me was I've wanted to run that race for a very long time. I think probably for around 4 or 5 years now, that's been the race I wanted to target. And a lot of my prep work and a lot of the things I've chosen to run and training I've chosen to do, it's been around how do I get from the runner that I am or was then to the runner I need to be to go compete well at UTMB. And that UTMB's decision there made me never want to run the race. Like, just flat out killed my desire to ever run the UTMB, which is really disappointing. I mean, I already was kind of distrustful of UTMB management because I've heard from so many race directors over the years, this or that about feeling like they've been bullied into joining a trail or bullied into making their course a UTMB qualifier. Who really felt like the ITRA community was really the UTMB community. And so to have UTMB then go abandon ITRA after kind of forcing it on so many people, I found just really, really disappointing, especially because there was just so much optimism at the end of the summer into the early fall, because you had all these different groups, like, skyrunning groups and mountain ultra trail groups and ultra running groups coming together and going, hey, you know what, let's build a unified world championship. We'll still have all our own series, like Cirque Series, Skyrunning Series. We'll have all our own series of races, but we will align the location and the dates of our final championships and make the events overlap as much as possible each year and have this kind of unified championship week. That seemed incredibly awesome. And it seemed like even partners like UTMB and Spartan were going to be in that. And then to have UTMB come back, you know, a couple months later and go like, actually, we're going to build our own world championship series. And not only are we going to build our own world championship series, but guess what? We're going to abandon ITRA entirely. Oh, and on top of abandoning ITRA entirely, if you want to qualify for our thing, now you only can run our races. Here's 6 races. They're all expensive destination races. It doesn't feel like it's unifying the sport. It feels like it's fragmenting the sport, and I don't like that. So it's, yeah, it made me lose so much interest so quickly, which is a pity because there aren't a lot of races that have had the opportunity to design a course that runs through so many mountain towns around an iconic mountain and an iconic landscape with the number of participants that they've been allowed to have. UTMB is very unique in so many factors from that perspective that it's really awesome. And so to have it shut itself off from the rest of the sport and isolate itself from the rest of the sport really feels sucky. And I think kind of hand in hand to that, I had been really optimistic about the future of UTMB qualifiers just right before that, because initially last fall, they were like, hey, we're going to redo our qualification system yet again. And we're going to kind of make it so that it's easier to qualify. We're going to say, oh, like if you have qualification points, you're in the lottery. You can basically get yourself into the lottery with 2 races run over, where it's 1 race a year. And once you've hit that 2 race threshold, your points, your tickets continue to accumulate until you actually come run, which seems so much healthier and better for the sport than something like the Western States system, where you get injured 1 year or you just kind of have a bad year and you didn't get that race in, or you had a year that you were really busy and you didn't get that 1 race in, and this lottery ticket that you've been building for maybe 7 years at this point is just gone because you didn't get it that year. That doesn't feel healthy. Or the races that are requiring multiple 100Ks and multiple 100-milers.
It's changed their policy.
Yeah. But the races, you know, requiring a multiple 100Ks and multiple 100-milers just has to be a qualifier. That's not actually healthy for this sport. Like, sure, it encourages people to go run more things, but it also encourages people to break down because they're running too many big efforts and had to sacrifice the smaller efforts. Yeah. And we kind of see this happening. Like Lake Sonoma 50-miler, super classic race. Always one of the most competitive golden ticket races. More top 10s and definitely more podium winners out of Lake Sonoma than most of the other ticket races. Now has a 100K option because they feel they have to have the 100K option and they have to move the race to being 100K to stay on the golden ticket bandwagon. We're losing an iconic 50-miler to 100K because of that pressure. I don't think that that's actually healthy for the sport.
Are you saying that Lake Sonoma's changing? They're offering 100K to be a Western States golden ticket or to be in the UTMB system?
I think it's both. I honestly think it's both.
News on that.
But it's the fact that they've been pressured into this 100K option is unfortunate, I think. But I think that's what's happened. Like, I mean, I don't know for a fact that's what's happened. It's not like I've talked with the race directors, but it just feels like what's happened is that they've been pressured into a 100K option because that's where the trend is going. UTMB, getting UTMB points via 50-milers basically just wasn't happening anymore. Getting for Western States qualifier, their race was no longer a Western States qualifier for any of their entrants unless you won the golden ticket. Unlike any of these other 100Ks, like, you know, Bandera or Black Canyon, where, you know, just completing the thing gets you into the lottery system. That wasn't true anymore for Lake Sonoma. I think it's unfortunate that we're losing that stuff. And so these qualification systems that push you towards more races of longer duration, what it does, I think, is just cannibalize the 50K to 50-miler range of the sport. And the number of small races that just seem like, oh yeah, we're tacking on this distance and we're tacking on this distance and we're tacking on extra loops because they're trying to hit these arbitrary standards for qualifiers for things versus really developing a unique experience or a unique race or an awesome race is, I think, kind of we're losing something with this sport in the process.
Yeah, totally. I mean, my take on it was just I guess the pay-to-play system that seemed to be the worst aspect of it, where, okay, yeah, there's like existing other qualifiers to UTMB that would continue to be bullied into paying up to be part of their system, but then it's like the odds ratio that you'd get from those would be dwarfed by if you got the quote unquote running stones from running the UTMB races, right? It's like a 9-to-1 factor in some cases. So it's like, if you actually wanted to run UTMB and win that lottery, it just behooves you to run their races rather than anybody else's. Yeah, I didn't have any, I certainly had the desire to run UTMB someday, and I'd been in the lottery before the pandemic and everything, and then I was hoping to run that, but to just like spend money for race entries and travel to these UTMB races that aren't any more interesting to me than the other qualifiers that I would otherwise run, just kind of puts it into a category of like, why bother? I went and did the kind of fast packed the course a couple years, 3 years back, and it's beautiful, but to do it as the race, it's kind of like, well, it's certainly
your
much interested anymore
photos
and
and
kind of turned off
videos
by
from
it.
that were awesome. I really enjoyed looking at all of your Strava and Instagram posts for that. That was a really cool thing. Yeah, and on the media side,
I mean, I would.
I'm surprised that there wasn't more
I was
discussion
going to say,
about
just
this.
in terms of people.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like there was a flurry of articles and Twitter activity for maybe a week or two, and then it kind of died away.
Yeah.
But there's not been the discussion of the folks that would normally comment on these things. Like Billy Yang hasn't had a podcast on this. A lot of the different folks who would usually assess the kind of state of our sport and stuff. I mean, maybe it's because people have just been focused on Western states and didn't want to take the shine away from that. The Aravaipa folks didn't want to comment on it because they were focused on their Cocodona race. So just the timing of when that announcement was made, maybe that's part of it. But
I think there's you have athletes who probably don't want to comment on it because they maybe still want to run UTMB, so they don't want to be, and they might want to get some UTMB sponsorship for going to these UTMB events so that they get into this system. So they're somewhat incentivized to do the tactful polite thing and not say, oh, this is a horrible decision. And I think on top of that, there's a lot of wait and see. I think we all want to see more money and investment in the sport. And this does seem like UTMB is trying to do that. Whether it's the right way or not, they're at least trying to do that, which that's commendable in a lot of ways. And so I think there are folks who want to do that wait and see. And if there's maybe a business model here, maybe it's good. Personally, I kind of hope it's not the business model that succeeds. I think there are better analogies, I think, in cycling than in the triathlon models for what maybe we should be pushing for. But it is, I think it's valid. I mean, it's valid to approach it from that perspective. But I think it sucks for the common person. I mean, you're turning it into, we're taking a sport that is already elitist in a lot of ways. It already is a sport that It's dominated by folks who have means. So you need to be able to take time off both for training and for racing. You need to have the budget for travel. And it's taking that to the next level. Now it's money for international travel. And that's true for everyone globally, because these by UTMB races are pretty spread out. So it's people who have the money for international travel to a big destination plus time to adjust there. Like you're probably talking a $10,000 trip to just get your qualifier, which is fairly. It's not something a lot of people are going to want to do.
Get yourself to Patagonia or Thailand and going. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, if that race was the bucket race, then sure.
Yeah,
you were saying,
but even some of the qualifiers that acquired by UTMB, like Tarawera, that was a race that I kind of had on my list to want to go do, and just because of just kind of have a sour taste in my mouth of the corporatization of the sport that has been put on it. It's like I have less interest to go run Tarawera. I still want to go out to New Zealand and explore around, but maybe not to do the Tarawera race.
Yeah. So I actually have.
I'm also curious.
I actually have a family call I've got to jump in a few minutes, and so I've got to say bye. But I would love to chat with you more about the media stuff, especially because I think the whole discussion around what happened in China has just been incomplete, like very incomplete. Even though we don't have a lot of details on exactly what went wrong, it maybe never will have details on exactly what went wrong. I think there's enough known that there were conversations that should have been had and aren't being had around our sport, safety, race guidelines, and some self-reflection. So we should maybe pick up there.
Okay. Yeah. Pick up there next time. All right.
It's been
good chatting. Good night, Chris.
You too.
And I'll talk. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Maybe.
All right. Bye.